Good morning. This is Attorney Vincent Davis, and this is The Secret: How to Fight CPS and Win. Um, Today's Christmas morning, so Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy holidays. We had a scheduled guest this evening, or excuse me, this morning from South Carolina, and apparently they're having some technical difficulties. So we're going to switch the show up a little bit. I'll be taking questions, but I want to tell you today because it's Christmas, we have some special giveaways. And in order to get those giveaways at the appointed time, when I tell you, you will have to email, and I'll put the email in the chats. You will have to email this email address, all right? And it's Rachel at vincentwdavis.com. And at the appointed time, you will receive that gift if you email her within 5 minutes of that appointed time. And let me tell you what the free gifts are going to be. The free gifts are number one at 9:15 a.m. Until 9:20. If you email Rachel, you get a free copy of my CPS book. So when you email me, make sure you give me your name, your address, uh, and your telephone number, and we will get that book to you at 9:30. From 9:30 to 9:35, if you email Rachel, you will get a free copy of my special CPS report. And then again at 9:45, if you email Rachel, you will get a free copy of a civil rights complaint that I actually used and drafted in a case that turned out to be very successful. I want to give you this. This civil complaint, by the way, is public record. It's not a confidential document. It was actually filed and is actually part of the United States court process on what's called PACER. So you can get it, but I'm going to give it to you just in a digital format, and you can look at it and maybe perhaps use it as a template if you ever want to file a federal civil rights lawsuit against a social worker. And then at 10 a.m., if you're still watching, from 10 a.m. to 10:05, you'll get a free copy of the Court of Appeals decision in that very case where I'm giving you the complaint. And the reason why this is important is because when I filed that complaint, the lawsuit started, and then at a point in time in the lawsuit, the county and the social workers made a motion to have the case thrown out. And it was thrown out by the trial court judge. I was outraged that that happened, and we filed an appeal. And we filed the appeal, and we won. This whole process took a couple of years, if you can believe that or not. And we came back. They tried to do some of the same thing again against us. We finally prevailed and, won in the lawsuit by way of us. They decided to settle with my client. And it was an interesting issue. The issue in the case was, could a social worker who allegedly sexually harassed um, my client be sued for civil rights violations? Now, interestingly enough, in this circuit in the western part of the United States, the answer to that question had never been answered by the Court of Appeals, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And, the trial court judge ruled that the social worker could not be sued for that. Surprisingly, right? Well, I thought that was, well, just to say, suffice it to say, I wasn't in agreement with that decision. And we filed an appeal. Many months later, we end up winning the appeal. There's a published decision, and that's what the free gift is about. Um, but the court ruled that, of course, if a social worker sexually harasses um, a parent or a party in a civil rights case, they can be sued. And I agree with that decision, obviously. But when you read the complaint that is part of the 945 giveaway, and then you read the opinion, which is part of the 10 o'clock giveaway, you'll understand more about what I'm talking about. And perhaps that will give you some insight to the complexities and hurdles of a civil rights case against a social worker in a county or state. For those of you that your CPS system is on a statewide system and not a county system. I know, for example, like Oregon is statewide, California is countywide, and I think Arizona is the same way. And I think it's different from state to state. So let's see. Deidre says, so are we sending different emails? What do you say in the email? Just that we are on the show at the time? Yeah, so that's a good question, Deidre. So at 9:15, I'll tell you, okay, this is the giveaway for, I think it's the free book, my free CPS book. And all you do is you email that address that I gave you and you say, I want free book. Okay? Now, don't forget, you have to do it from 9:15 to 9:20 a.m. because Rachel is only going to process those emails for those people that were watching at that point in the show. All right. And the same thing for the special report, the same thing for the civil rights complaint, and the same thing for the Court of Appeals decision. Okay. Right. Hope everybody understands because it's a one-time giveaway. Okay. Deidre says, I'm ready. Good. All right. So we don't have any we don't have our guests for this evening. Or this morning, we had some special guests for today. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take questions from the audience. Now, if you post a question that I post and read to the audience, you get from me as an additional Christmas gift a free 15-minute consultation with me. And you will also email Rachel that you want that consultation because you set it up. Okay? All right, so let's start going through the comments. Merry Christmas to everyone. Now, by the way, that free consult is for questions, not for greetings. Okay? Happy Christmas, Mr. Davis. Let's see. Brian says they have in Texas for other reasons. Okay, Thomas says the sexual law should be a different one than a civil rights lawsuit. Well, Thomas, that was interesting. That's what the CPS lawyers argued. And the Court of Appeals disagreed. And I disagreed. Here, let me explain something to you. And I think this is a hard concept. It was a hard concept for me to for me to understand when I was in law school learning this. In a situation where there is a violation of your rights by the social worker, in any case, you have the ability to bring a state-based claim for sexual harassment, or number two, a civil rights claim for violation of your rights by a governmental actor. They're not the same. All right. So the social worker can do one thing, but be sued two different ways. Now, here's the catch. If you sue them under state law, the state rules apply. If you sue them under federal law, the federal rules apply. And sometimes those rules are significantly different. So you want to pick which lawsuit or which claim you want to make. Now, somebody asked, can you make both claims? Yes, you can sue the social worker for both, but in the end, you can only collect on one of those claims. Now, sexual harassment claims come with damages by way of state law, and they could include punitive damages, additional damages. But under 1983, 42 U.S.C. 1983, you can be entitled to the same punitive damages. All right. So there are benefits and burdens to bringing a state claim and a federal claim. You have to sit down with your client or sit down with your attorney or get a consult as to what you might want to do. And this is just a general rule of thumb for me. Okay, it's not true in every case, but I like to bring federal claims. And there's a reason for that. Federal judges are a lot stricter, but they're stricter on both sides of the fence. All right. So if the judge is putting pressure on you as the plaintiff or the victim's attorney, they're also putting that same pressure on, the defense attorney. All righty. Everyone's saying good morning, Merry Christmas. Okay, Deidre says, okay, so Deidre, you understand the giveaway rules. Okay. All right. Here's our first question. And I hope it's Monia. Monia, you've earned your first free consult with me. You need to go ahead and email Rachel to collect your consult so that she will set it up today. It won't necessarily be today, but you have to set it up today, Monia Monia. So your question is, if a CPS worker asks for a picture of your children's bottom to be sent to their cell phone, question mark. Okay, Monia, that may be an incomplete question there. You might be asking, can they? They can ask you anything they want. Whether you should do it is a whole nother story. And if a social worker asked me for something like that, I don't even think I would respond or just respond no. Now, I'm not telling you you should do that, but I don't know the context and I really don't know your full question. Okay, but that's the answer to that question. Okay, Thomas. I believe I can sue several parties allowing the social worker for allowing my child to get flat-headed. Brian, I talked to you and you're right. You can sue several parties. It could be the social worker, the supervisors, the medical professionals that were involved. I don't recall all of the details. By the way, it's 9:15. If you want that free gift, which is a free copy of my book, you need to email Rachel right now from 9:15 to 9:20 and say, I want the free copy of the book. If you are within that time period, she will process that for you beginning Monday or Tuesday. All right. Here's our next question. Thomas, you better send in your email setting up your free consult. It says, how can we file a Supreme Court hearing? Now, I'm going to assume that you mean Supreme Court of the United States. Okay. And the general rule is you cannot. The Supreme Court generally does not have original jurisdiction to file a case straight into the Supreme Court. There are some limited exceptions, especially, and I think one of the exceptions that I recall from constitutional law in law school was, a state versus a state. But these types of things come up rarely, and they used to come up, significantly back in the beginning formative years of the country, where there were issues that needed to be resolved, perhaps state versus states' rights regarding, territory or a river or something like that. Um, but all of those things have been generally settled. So if you want to sue a social worker, I suggest you talk to a civil rights attorney in your area that is familiar with suing CPS, because CPS there's a little, couple little twists on the dial that, the attorneys should be familiar with. Not that they can't research it, they could, but, if you want to talk to someone who has some expertise and get some more information before you venture out. Now, I want to tell you guys this. It's important that you know this before you sue a social worker or the county. You better make sure you have a good case, because if you're wrong, they can ask for sanctions against you, and they might be, you might lose the case and they might be awarded, 50, 60,000 or more dollars against you for bringing a lawsuit against them that, was frivolous. So please be careful. Talk to a lawyer. Okay. Deidre Payne is qualifying for that free consult. I have a question. What happens if my mom is the legal guardian of my kids and decides to move to Vegas? Does she still get the same funding and everything? That's a very good question. And I believe the answer is, well, it depends. No, like everything else in the law. And it would be up to the social worker on the case. It would be up to um, the arguments your mother can make. So, for example, let's say your mother was in Los Angeles and she decided that she wanted to move to Vegas with the kids. If she doesn't tell anyone, she'll still be getting that check every month for the kids, right? Now, let's say that you object or someone objects and he wants to challenge that move. Social worker may become aware of it and decide to cut the funding because she's moving to a place that may have a lower standard of living, cost of standard of living. So there's a lot of different ways. I would be just a proponent of keeping everything the same because moving is an important constitutional right. It's called the right to travel, and it's up there with freedom of speech and freedom of religion. So, you know, that's what I would argue. But thank you for your question, Deidre Payne. Okay. To get my kids back, can I sue DHS for exploitation too, or what will be the personal injuries be called? Okay, Nicole, here's the thing. 99.9% of the time, you cannot sue CPS or DHS and expect to get your children back. The reason is because it is a civil lawsuit. And unless you provide some type of, claim for injunction, which the court will probably not hear, you're left to trying to get DHS back or get your children back through DHS, through the CPS court. Okay. You can't go to federal court and say, hey, I want my kids back. And there's this whole concept in federal court about something called absenteeism. And absenteeism means that federal courts won't get involved with issues that are uniquely states' rights issues. So we're going to go back to the formation of this country and the formation of what's the difference between a Democrat and a Republican, and it has its basis in this I guess concept. There are some things that the federal court will deny to get involved with because it's strictly a states' rights issue, and traditionally one of those things is the custody of children. All right. Now, let's say that social worker violates your rights regarding custody and CPS court decides this way. You can still sue CPS and the social worker and get a result this way. But when you go this way, you can only get money. You can only get money. A lot of people think, oh, if I sue them, I'm going to get my child back. No, it's not true. A lot of people think this. And a lot of people's strategies, which are incorrect strategies, is this. Mr. Davis, I want to hire you to sue CPS because that's going to put pressure on them to give me my child back. That's the worst strategy in the world. Because when you sue them, they're not going to give you your child back. They're going to even justify more why they took that child away from you or why they had the right to do that. So don't think about that. This is my general, I guess, advice. If you want to sue CPS because they violated your rights, don't mention it to anyone. Focus on getting your children back first and then sue them. All right. Now, is that the same strategy for every case? No. Okay. Because it depends on where you are in the CPS case. All right. Are you in stage 1, stage 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? And what are the circumstances and the facts and the story surrounding your case? I may give you different advice. I may say, yeah, you should sue them and go to CPS court and get your kids back. Or I might tell you, wait, don't sue them just yet. Get your children back first. All right. Monia says, what's the email? I'll give it to you again for everyone that wants to collect the gift and make their free consultation. Okay. All right. Nicole says, even for giving out my medical information over the phone. Well, if you believe that they have violated your HIPAA rights, you can, talk to a lawyer about suing them. But that's not going to help you get your kids back. I know you think that it would, but it's not. Thomas says, what types of sanctions? Money sanctions. The judge can sanction you real money, and it will be a judgment that you have to pay them back. Okay? All right. Hold on. All right. Here's another question. Ariel says, so sorry, guys. Went out, got my old work from home internet cord to be prepared, and go figure my Chromebook is down, not having it. Laugh out loud, story of my life. But Merry Christmas, everyone. Hey, Ariel. Ariel was supposed to be the guest this morning on our Christmas show. She and her husband, and she's telling us now what happened. Ariel, I really appreciate you telling us. Get in touch with Grace tomorrow. I think she's working tomorrow, and email her and just reset up an appointment. Have you on the show. But Ariel, thank you. I was wondering what happened to you. Okay, Deidre says she's in Orange County. What about the visitation we're supposed to get every week? Does she have to Does she have to provide the transportation? Okay, I'm a little confused about the story, Deidre. I don't remember all of the ins and outs of your case, um, but the general answer is if you're in Los Angeles and your kid is placed in Orange County, the social worker is supposed to be responsible for that visitation, setting it up. Now, does that mean you travel one way and they travel the other, or you travel both ways, or they travel both ways? It depends. Um, I've been in a lot of cases where it has been assumed that the parent going to the visit or having the visit is responsible for the transportation. But if you look in the Welfare and Institutions Code in California, it's actually the social worker who's responsible to make that happen, but they don't because of funds. It's an easy way to get money from the federal government, not provide that service, and keep the money and use it elsewhere. All right. All right. Nicole says, but the psychiatrist that they sent me to was the predator to me. Nicole, if you meant that the psychiatrist was trying to make advances at you, I've heard that over the years about some service providers. Um, Unfortunately, things like that happen. It's not right. Don't get me wrong. It's not right. But I'm not surprised because I have heard those stories, and people do what people do. All right, here we are. Brian says, I made that mistake. Brian, I talked to you, and I think you're talking about the claims and the type of claims that you want to bring. All right. Ariel says, I hope she got my email, not copy and pasting. So guess I'll know if I never receive a book. Ha. Oh no, Ariel, if you email Grace, she's not working today. It's Christmas, um, but she'll get the email if you sent it to Grace at Vincent W. Davis on the phone, vincentdavis.com. All right. Deidre says, my mom is legal guardian and wants to move to Vegas come summertime. Okay. And she says, her case is over. An exit court order states that we get 6 hours visitation per week. But if she moves to Vegas, what happens with the visitation? Nothing happens with the visitation, Deidre. It's still the court order. So if you're against her moving, there's actually something that you can do, right? You can file, if you're in California, you file a 388 to stop her from moving because of the visitation. Or you can file a 388 to get your kids back, or you can file a 388 to even increase visitation to make it even more difficult for her. Now, Las Vegas is not that far away, and I'm not saying you should drive. What I'm saying is, if she moves to Vegas, she might be responsible for bringing the kids back for your visitation days. I've seen judges do things that are similar to that. And this is what if I'm the judge, I might say, I don't know everything about the case, but I might say something like, "Oh, you want to move to Vegas? Mom doesn't want you to move to Vegas because she is concerned about her court-ordered visitation, and I've already ordered that. So, if you move to Vegas, are you going to be responsible and make sure that you bring the kids back to LA so that mom has her visitation every week?" And if the answer is yes, I'll tell them, okay, go ahead and move. But if you don't, I may require you to move back. And if she tells me no from the very beginning, I'm likely to say, well, I'm not going to allow the move. So there you go, Deidre. Hope that helps. Okay, Ariel. Yes, we had court too, and definitely want to run some things by you. It did not go the way we were anticipating. The judge was horrible, and Lord, do I hope we don't get her on the next go round. But, well, Ariel, I can't wait to talk to you about this, but um, I want to say, generally speaking, and Miss G's not here today, so she can't disagree with me, but she would disagree with you, disagree with me. Uh, Generally, it's not the judge's issue. A lot of people blame the judge, but generally it's your issue and your lawyer's issue by not doing a good enough job with the presentation of, contradicting evidence of the social worker, not knowing or following the procedures, that type of thing. You know, we had a call a couple days ago on the show, and it reminded me of this story, and I'll tell it again just quickly. Um, on a Saturday many years ago, a guy came to visit me and he said, I want custody of my daughter. And I said, well, you have to go to court and establish that. He said, well, I went to court yesterday and I lost. And the judge gave me one visitation per week. I think it was 10 to 5 or 10 to 6 on every Saturday, not even an overnight. And I said to him, I said, well, why did you not come see me before? And he said, well, I thought I could handle it myself. I thought the judge would do the right thing. Ariel, never expect the judge to do the right thing. You have to do the right thing in the presentation of your case. So this, in his case, what happened, he had school records and medical records, copies of them that he wanted the judge to look at. And it would show that there were problems with the caretaking or the parenting by the mother. And perhaps, the father should have custody, or there should be much more visitation so that the father could keep, eyes on it. Well, the client claimed that the judge was corrupt and bad because the judge wouldn't consider his evidence, the copies of paper. And I said to him, I said, well, did you do everything you're supposed to do to get those documents admitted into evidence? And he looked at me like, what the hell are you talking about? These are the records from from the school and from the hospital. And I just shook my head. I said, you lost, not because the judge did a bad job. You didn't know what the rules of the game were. You didn't know how to get documentary evidence into the court to have the court consider it under the California Code of Evidence. Well, he said, why would I have to do that? These are really the documents. I said, well, they're really the documents because you know they are, but nobody else knows that you're not showing false documents. And I said, by the way, in the California Evidence Code, it tells you how to get documents into evidence, right? There's 2 or 3 sections on it. And he looked at me and this is what he said. What's the California Code of Evidence? Okay, so there, that says it all. You don't know the rules of evidence, you go into court, 999 times out of 1,000, you're going to lose. Is it right morally? Probably not. But that's just the rules of the game that we've set up in our court system for the last, 200, 250 years. You got to know what the rules of the game is. I asked him at that time, I said, hey, if you play in baseball, 3 strikes are out, right? Right. Of course. I said, why isn't it 4 strikes? How come it's not 2 strikes? He said, well, that's not the rule. Exactly. That's not the rule in court either. Okay. Deidre, does she have to provide transportation if and when she does move? Well, that's the whole answer to that's the $64 question, Deidre. And I think I may have answered that. You might want to go to court and file for her not to move. And if she does move, you want a court order that says that she has to bring the kids back and forth for the visitation. But while you're at it, you might as well try to get your kids back as well. Okay. Uh-oh, we missed the 9:30. The second gift at 9:30 is one of my special reports for CPS cases. If you want a copy of that, you have until 9:40. Let's give you that extra minute, 9:40, to send an email to Rochelle saying, I want the special report. All right. All right. Ryan says, yeah, I learned that lesson in the first hearing. Okay, Thomas. Thomas must be a regular viewer. Classic quote of Mr. Davis. Quote, never expect the judge to do the right thing. You have to do the right thing in the presentation of your case. Thomas is exactly right. Don't think about what justice is, because justice is not what you think it is. Thank you, Deidre. Tell me when I'm coming up on 9:45 so I don't miss that one. The 9:30, Thomas, was a special report that I've written on CPS cases. So if you want that. So 9:15 was the book, 9:30 was the special report. Okay. All right. Seems like we're running out of questions here today. Um, don't forget, if you post a question and I read it, you get a free consult on the phone with me. And, a lot of you really should be talking to lawyers more and stop trying to figure out how to not trying to figure it out yourself. Um, it could be, it's very difficult for people to figure out what their strategy should be, because a lot of it is counterintuitive, right? A lot of it is counterintuitive. Please take a look at my website on the ticker there, fightchildprotectiveservices.com. Oh, and if you want to, by the way, if you want to sue a social worker, take a look at this website that I have, suecps.info. A lot of good information there. And if you have a CPS case or know someone that has a CPS case, you definitely need to look at this website that I have, freecpsreport.com. Okay. All right. Let's see if there are any more questions. Okay, there are no further questions. All right. What I will do is I'm going to play a couple videos. Oh, we got a question. Let me see. This is from Ariel. My attorney and my husband's court-appointed attorney were never given the chance to speak before she ruled custody attempt to the sister. That's an unusual situation, Ariel. Generally, the attorneys for the parents are always allowed to speak and make argument. So I don't know the circumstances, but when you come on the show, we'll explore that more in detail. Okay, so while I'm waiting for more questions. I'm going to play a video, quick video. This is What is Justice? I was recently asked a question, and it was a very interesting question. A caller asked me, Vince, out of all of the hundreds of videos you've done on YouTube, what's the single one most important YouTube video you have done? And I thought long and hard about it. And it's probably a video I did, it seems like a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, maybe. And the name of the video is What is Justice? I think that everyone who has a CPS case or has any type of case in general should watch that. I think it's about a 7-minute video where I'm standing in front of a whiteboard explaining what is justice. Justice isn't what you think it is. Please watch that video and educate yourself so that you will know how to deal with this judicial system and your CPS case. That video can be found on my YouTube channel. Okay, here's a case. Thomas says, is my case on public record? The answer to that is no. These cases are confidential. So, someone asked me the other day, when I did my family law divorce case, it was online and I could just go look at it. And they said, well, I can't find my CPS case online. And I told them, you'll never will be able to, because it's confidential and you don't have access to it. If you're in counties in California that you have access to the portal, you have to be a lawyer to have access to the portal. If you want a copy of your case, you got to go to court, talk to the court clerk to get a copy of it. Okay. Good question though, Thomas. Thanks. Okay. Ariel says she only kept going back and forth between the GAL's attorney and the sister's attorney. Generally speaking, judges can run their courtroom the way they want to. That's the power that we give them because they wear the black robe. Now, does that mean we're always going to agree with them? No, not at all. But they can run their courtroom, generally speaking. And if your attorneys needed to say something, it's generally up to them to jump in there, or to raise their hand or to let the judge know somehow that they need to respond. Sometimes, I'll raise my hand or I'll say something like, Your Honor, when it's appropriate. In other words, I want to say something, if you guys, I don't want to interrupt anybody, but, I need to say something. Okay. Thomas, are the details on my case? No, we just answered that. And then it says, how can I see whether my name is on CACI? Okay, so Thomas is in California. And every state has one of these lists, but it's called something different. I just was doing a case last year, or in the last year in North Carolina, in Greensboro, and they called it something else. But CACI is the Child Abuse Reporting Index. So, for example, if you've been accused of child abuse, either at the criminal level or the juvenile level, your name's going to be put on this list. And the list is not public itself. It's only accessible to certain types of companies and entities and individuals who, need to know whether you have been accused of child abuse. So, for example, if you work for my law firm, I would not came to apply to my law firm as an employee, say a receptionist. I would not have access to whether you are on CACI or not, right? But let's say you wanted to work for the police, all right? You would have access. They would have access, and you would have to. Your name may show up and prevent you from getting a job, right? So you can see, Thomas, you have to call or write. I think it's a written inquiry to the California Department of Justice and find out if your name is listed on there. There are a lot of people that are listed on there that want to be taken off, and they bring lawsuits because they, make the claim that they were falsely put on the list, or that they were put on the list without any prior notification, which is, a due process violation in our country. All right. Ariel says, yes, it was BS, and I'll have to explain better in depth. She is still around the molester, grandfather, and on an almost daily basis. Now has two boys. Okay. Yeah, Ariel, when we reschedule you as a guest, we will definitely talk about that. Okay, Teresa Stevenson, watching us on one of the Facebook platforms. How can CPS in the beginning not send the kids to a sibling's house because the sibling had an outstanding warrant, but 16 months later send them when the same warrant still exists? Just because parents won't sign anything completed everything twice. Well, Teresa, here's the thing, and I hate to say this because it sounds like a cop out, but it's true. CPS can do anything they want to do. The question is, are you going to challenge it? And the only way that you can challenge it, you got to make a motion to the judge or bring a lawsuit in front of a judge. So that's how CPS gets away with everything, because most people that I talk to, all right, especially relatives who want placement, if the social worker says no, you can't have the child, they just accept it and they just go away like it's a done deal. But it's not a done deal. I tell everyone, look, if the social worker says or does something you don't like, your remedy is to go to the judge and try to get a court order to the contrary. Social workers do things with their own agenda. And sometimes social workers do things because they're misinformed, or maybe intentionally, you know, misinformed about what the law is. The biggest one that I hear all the time is a person will have a CPS case and they're heading towards, losing their reunification services or their parental rights. And I just ask the question, like, why isn't the kid with grandma who lives, 1 mile away? Oh, the social worker told us no. And my thought is, and the social worker told you no, and then what did you do? Well, we just accepted it and thought the judge would say the same thing. No, no, that's not the law. Now, there might be good reasons. Maybe grandma is, a registered sex offender. I don't know. Then there's a reason not to give her the child. But if there's no reason, you guys got to go to court. And also remember, people, I've been telling people about this for a couple of years now. File a complaint with the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C. They regulate all CPS social workers in the country. They control the purse strings. Okay? So make a complaint to them. And I have seen with my own eyes a case where the parent, the mother, and the grandmother lost the kid through adoption, and that was reversed because of findings by DHHS. Okay, DHHS said, "Well, you screwed up, and unfortunately, you say you can't give the child back, and that's okay. We're just not going to give you any more federal money." Guess what? That child got returned because we're talking about like a $1 billion or $1.5 billion budget. And that county, who shall remain nameless, wasn't going to lose $1 billion because some kid that they, gave to a foster parent. Okay, Brian says, oh, hold on. We're at our next giveaway, 945. So if you want the 945 gift, which is a copy of a civil rights complaint that I actually won, eventually won on, email Rachel. You have 5 minutes. You'll have until 9:52 to send that email. All right. Hey Jack, I didn't see it at 9:45. Sorry about that. Okay. Jack says, I need a lawyer ASAP. Okay, Jack. You see bottom right of the screen? 888-888-6582. That's my telephone number. Call us. Set up an appointment. Let me know why and how you need an attorney. Jack says, I got my kids back within 5 months. That's great, Jack. That means you must want to sue somebody. Okay. Thomas says mine was a prima facie case. By the way, it's prima facie, FACIE, I believe. No abuse was alleged. Well, they got to allege abuse or they can't keep the kid or take the kid, right? Jack says, yeah, they messed up my case. Ariel, correct. She was speaking, so he was being respectful, but he was standing. She clearly saw him standing there. She was a mean lady, that lady not being childish. She really was her demeanor, I guess. Okay, Ariel, I believe that. I wasn't there, and sometimes that happens, but your attorney still has to be hopefully aggressive enough to say something. Many years ago, I'm older now. I don't think I do this. This may be 20, 25 years ago. A judge wouldn't let me speak, and I kept speaking. And finally, he told me that if you don't stop speaking, I'm going to have you arrested. And I kept talking. And I told him, though, because, I was a lot less mature in my litigation skills. I made a comment to him that he just stood up. I think he was so upset that he just stood up and walked off the bench. Luckily, I didn't get arrested, and luckily, I didn't have to face contempt. And these days, I would never do anything like that, nor would I advise you to do anything like that. Um, at Jake, congratulations. All right. I'm a little behind on these questions. Well, Merry Christmas. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you. Fostering a culture of ex-party communications. Sometimes I do get that feeling too. 42 USC 1983. It's not right. And there's a famous case in California about ex-party communications outside the presence of parents, but it was in a family law case, and it said I think it was the California Supreme Court. I think said that, yeah, you can't do that. Can't do that. Okay. It says the judge overrun it in lieu of sending them home. Teresa, I'm not sure what you're trying to say there. Brian says we have had reversed many CPS decisions throughout my case. Yeah, I mean, I talked to Brian. When the CPS courts make rulings that you don't like, you can also appeal. You can also file a writ or have your lawyer do those things. All right. The trial court should always be challenged if you believe that a wrong decision was made. Okay. 42 USC judicial canons, which require judges to comply and uphold the law, perform all duties fairly and impartially, and not initiate, permit, or consider ex parte communications. 1983, you are absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. No ex parte communications. Does it ever happen? Yeah, I think that it does. Should it happen? No, absolutely not. Says the Supreme Court has final authority to determine what, if any, judicial conduct occurred. Um, that would be state by state, 1983. Kept speaking. Yeah, Ariel. I was young and dumb back then, and yeah, I kept talking. I was really, pissed off about what was going on in that particular case. But I want to repeat now, as a 36-year attorney who's a lot smarter, a lot more experience, I wouldn't do that again. And I'm not suggesting anybody here do that. 1983's Commission on Judicial Qualifications has filed disciplinary charges against Decatur Circuit Court. Okay. I take it you are in Georgia, 1983. Because Decatur, that's in Georgia, I believe. Tracy, Merry Christmas. Thank you very much. 1983 says Case number is public record and has been filed with the appellate clerk's office. Okay. But 1983, here's the question. What has the commission decided? Has the commission decided in favor of the judge or against the judge? That's probably the most important thing, right? All right. Any more questions? Let's see if I can play one more video so we can get to the last giveaway. Let's do this one. Civil rights cases against social workers and state or county entities. You have a CPS case, the social worker has violated your civil rights and you want to sue them. And you call an attorney, and you expect that attorney, in many cases, to handle the case on contingency fee, meaning you don't put up any money. Here's the problem. These civil rights cases are not car accident cases. They're complex, expensive civil litigation matters. That's why most people don't sue social workers. They can't afford it. A typical civil rights case, I would say, will cost you, just in the expenses alone, $200,000 over a period of 18 months to 2 years. Who has that kind of money? And you can't expect the lawyer to put that money up for you. He or she probably can't afford it. If you have a civil rights case, call me, 888-888-65. Okay, we have a couple more questions. Tracy, watching on YouTube. Tracy Smith says, Mr. Vance, I'm in Chicago and would like to call and get some advice from you if that's okay. When I call the hotline number, all I get is the office. Okay, Tracy, I hope you have a pen. I'm going to give you a secret number. I'm not even going to put it in the chat, so I hope you're listening. Tracy, text me at 310-308-7758. 310-308-7758. Text me at that number. Let me know who you are, ask your questions, and I'll even try to get back with you today, Christmas, Tracy, or tomorrow. Okay. Yes, Mr. Vince, I got that, Tracy. Okay. Jack, I refused to give my son the shot. They vaccinated him and gave him back. He was only 3 years old. Jack, you might want to consider a civil rights lawsuit regarding your interference with your parental rights and regarding your son's right to not be vaccinated. So it's up to you. All right. We're coming to the end of the show, and the last giveaway is the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals appellate decision, reversing the dismissal of the civil rights case regarding the sexual harassment. And I didn't mention this before, but a lot of lawyers or a lot of people thought that case that we won created a new law. And technically it did, but it was just something to me that was always there, but just never recognized. So everyone has 5 minutes to request a copy of that opinion by emailing Rachel at the email address we gave out earlier. Okay, Tracy says, again, please. Tracy, this is supposed to be a secret telephone number. 310-308-7758. All right, so just text me, Tracy. All right, listen, everyone, thank you for viewing today on Christmas. Everybody have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Thank you. Bye-bye.